a search of fantastic morons.
A trans with a Schmendrick swinging it in a girl's bathroom.
Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to foot.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents.
I was going to say that would have thrown me for the whole show.
Yeah, I meant to take the intro off, and instead I accidentally removed myself from the studio. I hope I didn't just ruin all the videos. No, we have everything here.
That would have really sucked.
That would have sucked. Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a special Thursday morning edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. What's the deal with Thursdays, everybody? If Wednesday is hump day, the next day should be Friday. When you say, hey, we're over the hump, that means it's easy from here on out. What's this extra day? Am I wrong? What's the deal with Thursdays? We shouldn't have Thursdays. It should go from Wednesday right to Friday. Otherwise, Wednesday's not really hump day. Thursday should be hump day.
Thursday is like the middle age of the week. What's it doing there? You're not young, you're not old, you're in limbo.
Right, you're putting on weight. And then you got to work it off when you get to Friday.
Putting on weight, you're getting hair where there was never any hair before. It's like puberty, only awful. You're turning into a werewolf.
See, this is great stuff. We're auditioning for. We want to get a job writing Jerry Seinfeld's next movie. So this is our
couldn't do
audition.
any worse.
Yeah, we know we're going to do a segment on his film.
We want to do something about the creation of the Twinkie.
Right. Yeah, we're pitching that. Yes, exactly. The Goodyear tire. You know, all these brand movies are coming out flaming hot about the Cheeto. Barbie was one example that was like creatively done. But then you had the movie about the broom or the mop.
Me, right? Are they really doing a Cheeto movie?
Yeah, there's a movie about the Cheeto flaming hot. That's in the works.
They're not really doing a Goodyear movie, are they?
No, that was my pitch.
It totally.
No, they did the movie with Jennifer Lawrence about the mop, right, or the cleaning, the broom, or whatever the fuck it was. Remember, David O. Russell directed a movie. I forget what the name is. The chat will know. The Jennifer Lawrence movie about the mop or the broom or some cleaning appliance, right? The chat will know. Come on. Give it to us.
You know what looked like the most cringe movie, and I think Jon Stewart did something about it when he was still on the Daily Show. They did a movie about the creation of the International Soccer League from the point of view of management.
Right.
It was about the guys who created the management and bureaucratic structure. That looked like the worst thing ever.
Joy. That's it. That's the movie. Jennifer Lawrence. Joy. Yeah.
It's about Joy dish liquid? What?
No, what was the movie Joy about? It's about some cleaning product, right? I think that's what it was about. I forget. Something like that. Yes. Yeah, the chat is coming through here. It's called Joy, Witch's Broom. Yep, you got it. Called Joy. All right, cool. Well, yeah.
Look, I will give Jennifer Lawrence credit. She is certainly not the first former ingenue to try to keep her flagging career going with a nude scene. She has to be the first one to do a nude scene on a beach fighting somebody.
Was that in the Russian movie?
No, that was the last movie she did was like a raunchy comedy where she literally fought somebody naked on a beach.
She did a nude scene in Red Sparrow too, the Russian movie.
She did, yes.
The anti-Putin propaganda film.
Yeah, this was full frontal, literally, cold clocking somebody on a beach.
Oh, interesting. Didn't hear about that one.
I'll take that over Meg Ryan and the Jane Campion thing.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, folks, we thank you all for being here today. Hit that like button wherever you are. Hit that follow button wherever you are. Great crowd to start the festivities. 923 in the YouTube and Twitter viewing room, and then 572 over on Rumble. We love to see that. We are without Jake today, but we do have Jake's app, so we got some Rumble rants coming in. Send those if you got those, please, and thank you very much. We got a lot to get to today, but we're going to start off light, as you may have noticed. Starting off light, Jerry Seinfeld, Unfrosted, has worst debut of any Netflix #1 this year. It's actually any Netflix #1 since they started tracking the individual view counts in June of last year. So it's actually the worst #1 debut in a year. This is from Forbes. The top line: comedian Jerry Seinfeld forayed into writing and for the first time directing a feature film with the release of a critically panned Pop Tarts origin story film on Netflix that debuted at the top of the streamers charts this week, but it was also Netflix's least watched #1 film of the year so far. Unfrosted, starring Seinfeld and Melissa McCarthy, dropped on Netflix on Friday and wrapped up 7.1 million views between April 29th and May 5th. That is quite low compared to the average. The #1 spot is a coveted one for films on Netflix, particularly in their debut week. But 7.1 million is the lowest number of plays received on a #1 movie so far this year. And Unfrosted fell below the low opening week for Heart of the Hunter, which had 10.9 million views. I never even heard of that, Heart of the Hunter.
Nor have I.
And it fell way below, almost 4 million below a movie no one's ever heard of. On average, films in the #1 spot have received 21.1 million views, with Netflix original Damsel in the top slot for #1 this year by notching 50.8 million watches in its second week, while Kevin Hart's heist film Lift scored 32.8 million in early January. So 7.1 is quite low. 39%, the big number. That's Rotten Tomatoes critic score of Unfrosted. The film has been praised for its 1960s period detail and standout cast. Other members include Max Greenfield, Hugh Grant, and Amy Schumer. But it was mostly panned as distressingly laugh-free, childishly silly, and junk cinema. Richard Roper says, if there was a thing called the IMDb Witness Protection Program whereby you could get your name taken off the credits of a particular project, this would be that project.
Cold.
Ann Brodel says, meh. And Vincent Mancini says, Jerry Seinfeld's directorial debut feels more like a movie Kenny Bania would have made. That's a good joke. I like that joke. So, one thing that you notice Forbes did give it some credit for, and some other critics have, is its production design. It's very bright and colorful. I actually watched a little of it in preparation for this segment. And yeah, not good. Believe me, not good. But Jerry Seinfeld gave an interview at a red carpet event for The Hollywood Reporter. They will copyright claim us if we play the video, but we can play the audio from that interview. So here's Jerry describing both the art direction of this masterpiece film of his and the inspiration for the idea.
I loved the color in the movie. Is that a choice you made while you were, doing the set design and the art direction for the movie?
Oh, yes, very much so. And I love when you decide, wherever you are in your house and you go, you know what? I'm going to have some cereal. So you go to the kitchen, you go to the cupboard, you open the door, and the first thing you see is those colorful boxes. So I want the movie to feel like that exciting feeling of colorful boxes.
Brilliant art direction.
You know what really inspired me? When I was 40, my 17-year-old girlfriend loved Pop Tarts.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Her parents were fans, so they didn't mind me bagging their underage daughter and then eating Pop Tarts for breakfast right at their living room table.
His Porsche, he's famous for having a converted apartment house full of Porsche cars. So, he's got a class privilege that he's blind to. I got to tell you, the collection of cereal boxes, that's an indication of a class privilege of a kind too. And let me put this as a poll to the audience. When I buy cereal, I buy one box at a time and go through it. I don't who keeps 10 cereal boxes in their cabinet. Who opens the cupboard and sees an array of bright, colorful cereal boxes? I buy one. When I get to the end of it, I go to the store, I buy another. I have one at a time. That's what's exciting about picking out the cereal. What do I want? Chocolate this week? I want cinnamon this week.
I think you're reaching a little bit, Key.
You really do? How many cereal boxes do you keep in your cupboard?
Right at this moment?
Yeah.
Until I finished off the third one, I had 3. I usually have about 2 sitting around. So when I finish one, there will be another.
All right. Well, you know what that makes you?
J-O-O?
Yeah.
Mr.
Bourgeois over here with the 3 boxes of cereal.
That's a little bit of a reach. That's a little bit of a reach.
I've never kept more than 1 box of cereal.
Mr. Fancy Pants with a pair of sneakers and a pair of shoes.
And a pair of shoes. I have 1 pair of sneakers at a time.
A little Lord Fauntleroy over here has
this guy
more
has
than
10
one
boxes
set
of cereal. I open
gear.
it up and there's a buffet of cereal in my cupboard. Yeah. Bougie. Exactly, Saul. Saul in the chat says bougie. Anyway, hold on 1 second. We got something else to get to here. We have 675 over in the Rumble chat. All right.
Left-handed path for Rumble.
Exactly. That's the art direction. Here is the inspiration for the movie.
It definitely does. And you said you've loved Pop Tart since you were a kid, but at what point did you start developing this idea into a feature film?
It wasn't my idea. It was Spike Feresten's idea to make a movie about the Pop Tart. I thought he was kidding. But
he probably was. I'm almost certain that he was. And then what happens? What happened?
When the COVID happened and we had nothing to do, he said, "Why don't we really do that movie?" I went, "It's not a movie. You can't make a movie about a Pop-Tart. What's it about?" And then Andy Robin, one of our other writers, said, "Why don't we make a movie like The Right Stuff, only with cereal?" And that's when I went, "Oh, yeah, that's a good idea."
No, it's not a good idea. You should have stuck with your first instinct, pal. Always trust your first instincts. You're Jerry Seinfeld. Your instincts got you where you are.
Okay, in all seriousness, I'll say this. Hitchcock once said, and I think he was right, when an artist is painting a picture of apples, it's not what he's painting, it's the manner in which he paints it. Yeah, man. I mean, Tim Burton in his prime probably could have made that movie work. But Seinfeld, as we were discussing offline, has never been all that great in this forum, in this dramatic storytelling forum or comedic storytelling forum, without Larry David. Yeah, he's a good joke writer, but if you look at what happened to Seinfeld after Larry David left, it just completely tanked. Like, I stopped watching it. It's the very first episode of Just Jerry Seinfeld. They did some kind of fast motion comedy. It just turned to total shit. Like they started doing a lot of shtick.
It was a lot of shtick. It got a little more cartoonish. Although I have to say, the first episode back, like I actually, as a Seinfeld fanatic, I think Larry left enough of an impression on Jerry where those last 2 seasons were certainly not the same as the first 7, but I still think they were on balance quite good. And the first episode of season 8,
we disagree, Gene.
Yeah, well, that's fine. After season 7, Larry's last episode where they killed Susan, the woman that George was going to marry, and they got all this shit for that. How could you do that? We thought they would just break up in some funny way. You actually kill her off. They got all this shit for that. And then the first episode where Jerry's running the show himself, George gets roped into that foundation in her memory. even though he's not getting any of her money that he would have married into. He's relieved to be free of the marital commitment. Now he has to head up this foundation, and everybody in the foundation assumes that he's grief-stricken and happy to honor her memory. Really, he just wants out. Like, that's very Larry. That's Larry's ethos.
Sure.
So I do think he made enough of an impression to make the show work even without him there. But there's no doubt, I mean, like the Frogger episode, they did a lot of shtick, a lot of cartoonish over-the-top stuff. Whereas the first seasons were very grounded.
Different.
Yes.
It was palpably different and not for the better. So it's not surprising that not only Jerry Seinfeld without Larry David, but Jerry Seinfeld, 25 years on?
In much more severe times. Like, part of what makes Seinfeld work is that the world was relatively low risk,
right? Sure,
during those times.
It was the end of history period. It was that period between the collapse of the Soviet Union and 9/11,
exactly,
where you could do a show about nothing, about manners. You could just do this comedy of manners about not being able to get your soup.
Examination of human interaction worked really well then, because there was really nothing else much going on that really captured the zeitgeist in terms of like world affairs. But you're right. I always thought of Larry and Jerry as the like Lennon and McCartney of TV. You know, they're two individual people, very talented, very good. When they come together, it's just magic. It's this transcendent, once-in-a-lifetime thing. And just like Lennon and McCartney, you had a philosopher and then you had a craftsman. Like Larry was the John Lennon. He was the philosopher of the two. It was his neurosis, his social anxiety, his obsessive, focus on the detail and minutia of every human situation, combined with Jerry, who was like a consummate joke writer. He was great at timing, great at crafting each line of dialogue, a setup, punchline, perfectly done. Just like Paul was the perfect songwriter. I mean, he could craft a hook as well, if not better than anybody.
They were the Dostoevsky and Tolstoy,
exactly,
of sitcoms.
And then you notice when the Beatles broke up, Lennon's stuff, in my opinion, was far better than McCartney's solo stuff. Wings was kind of, it was jingly. The McCartney solo stuff, it's good, it's well done, but it's jingly. Band on the it's like
none of
whereas Lennon, you had Instant Karma, you had Imagine, you had Working Class Hero, you actually had like really, I think, good deep music. And here too, Larry's solo career was Curb. Curb is a really good show, not as good as Seinfeld. Curb had like 4 seasons of greatness before it became a good show, not a great show, but still really solid, far better than anything Jerry's done on his own.
And McCartney, really the test of music is the test of time. Who the hell listens to Band on the Run?
Right. Exactly.
Who listens to that?
Right.
The only McCartney solo thing that is in the rotation is this Christmas song, because it's Christmas.
Right.
That's it. You'll hear that song in November and December. That's it.
Yeah, Live and Let Die a little bit because of the Bond
a little
thing,
bit,
but that's more like novelty, right? So yeah, not good reviews for the Jerry Seinfeld Unfrosted film, which is just desserts. How's that for a dad joke in the morning? Just desserts.
Wow. Oh wow! I can't believe you even did that to people.
For the modern day Zionist Jerry Seinfeld. Yes, I did that to you.
This is like we're flipping the Disney segment dynamic here.
Yeah. Well, we were going to do a Disney segment, and I forced it out for this. I'm like, no, this is better. We have to do this. We'll do the Disney thing on
which I was like,
Sunday.
all right. So since we're doing our fuck buck segment,
exactly. But we have a B segment to this Jerry Seinfeld thing. So as we were talking about earlier, Seinfeld was this show about nothing in a time about nothing, right here, right now, end of history, it's the 90s. New York Times puts out a fairly interesting piece. Jerry Seinfeld can no longer be about nothing. The comedian, long beloved for his apolitical riffs, has been wrestling with what it means to be Jewish amid the Israel-Hamas war. Not everyone is pleased. No, that is true. Jerry Seinfeld became a mic-cradling, cereal-eating, did-you-ever-noticing avatar of American Jewish life with a brazenly shrugging persona, a merry indifference to weighty material as a comedian and in his mega-hit TV show about nothing, as petty and apolitical as he seemed to be. Now, off camera at least, Mr. Seinfeld appears to have reached his post-nothing period. Since the attacks of October 7th in Israel and through their bloody why can't I read this morning? Wow. And through their bloody and volatile aftermath in Gaza, Mr. Seinfeld, 70, has emerged as a strikingly public voice against anti-Semitism and in support of Jews in Israel and the United States, edging warily toward a more forward-facing advocacy role than he ever seemed to seek across his decades of fame. He has shared reflections about life on a kibbutz in his teens, and in December traveled to Tel Aviv to meet with hostages' families, soberly recounting afterward the missile attack that greeted him during the trip. He has participated to a point in the kind of celebrity activism with which few associate him: letter signing campaigns, earnest messages on social media, answering simply recently when asked about the motivation for his visit to Israel, "I'm Jewish." See, this is the kind of just like cavalier marriage of Zionism and Judaism that we speak out against all the time. Like, it should not be that simple. That's an incredibly lazy and, in this case, irresponsible thing to say. Because look at how weighted that is. Look at how loaded that is. Say, well, I'm Jewish. That's why I visited Israel. That assumes that all Jews have some moral duty to support Israel.
Of course, and that's been the assumption for 75 years
Right.
until relatively recently that you could even begin to question that formulation. I think also when you look at somebody like Seinfeld, he's a smart guy, and to be a comedian, you have to have a certain perspective, even a clean, what's the deal with serial comedian? You still have to have a certain perspective. But it's very easy, I think, for people who were inculcated with that Zionism from childhood to lose that perspective in that area, especially when you're a billionaire comedian who probably doesn't have a lot of people in their lives who are going to say, well, Jerry, do you know this? Do you know that about the situation? Like, who does he have who's going to challenge him that way?
Right.
I'm sorry. A guy who would start banging a 17-year-old when he's 40 is a guy who doesn't like to be challenged. So he's probably purged people who would actually push back on him from his life a long time ago.
As some American cities and college campuses simmer with conflict over the Middle East crisis and Israel's military response, Mr. Seinfeld has faced a measure of public scorn that he has rarely courted as a breakfast-obsessed comedian, intensified by the more vocal advocacy of his wife, Jessica, a cookbook author. This week, as the couple and their children appeared together at the premiere of Mr. Seinfeld's new movie, Unfrosted, about Pop Tarts, Miss Seinfeld attracted attention for another reason. She promoted on Instagram and said she had helped bankroll a counter-protest at the University of California, Los Angeles, long for UCLA, where clashes with pro-Palestinian demonstrators have turned violent. That's New York Times speak for the Zionists who she funded attacked the pro-Palestine encampment. We all saw those videos multiple times on this show, and I'm sure you guys have seen it elsewhere. Among some activists on that side of the divide, disdain for the Seinfelds had been building for months. Genocide supporter, protesters shouted at Mr. Seinfeld on Manhattan's Upper East Side in February as he left a State of World Jewry address given by Barry Weiss, a former New York Times opinion editor and writer whose media company, The Free Press, has been championed by Miss Seinfeld. And we have the tweet here and the video of this incident that they describe. So there you have it. The man about nothing, no more.
That's why I always say all the money's on the other side. Anybody who says this is the grift, you want to get in on that Mrs. Seinfeld money?
Yeah.
You want to be on that side. You want to be on the Zionist side. If we start propagandizing for them and start writing some letters for money, these people got money, man.
Of course.
$50,000 check, that's lunch money for them.
Of course. And, look, Jerry has always been a very relatively apolitical guy, and I'm sure he considers his support for Israel relatively apolitical as well. He just assumes it's a default. Well, I'm Jewish, so it's my duty, right? That's how a lot of these people in our community think about this. And it's very, very difficult to break that coding. Russell was talking about a friend of his who he was able to break out of that spell. He talked about that on yesterday's show. For a lot of people, it's not even a conscious thing. It's just something that they assume. Right.
That took months. And hey, I will pass on the advice that person gave to me for anyone in similar straits trying to spread the news that to be Jewish is not to be Zionist by definition. What really reached this person was Tantora. I had shared articles. I had shared the Abby Martin video, which is going to come up in the next segment. Gaza Fights for Freedom, her documentary from 2019 about this subject. Tantora was the breakthrough. That was what got through that person. So, word to the wise. I don't know. Drop Tantora on them. That was what they said. Start with that. That's what they said to me. You should have led with that.
There you go. Nocturnal Human, thanks for the $1. Dissident song recommendation, Born a Rebel by Lion D. Also, I hope you can get to the story about Russia banning Rumble. Oh, is that what the story was? Somebody mentioned Russia and Rumble yesterday. I didn't know what it was. But yeah, no, that's no good. That's no good. Goddamn Putin.
Putin!
Yeah. Let's go to some super chats here. Hedges, Zach from the Vanguard takes Real News' side. Really? LOL. Really? Is that could that be true? By the way, been meaning to ask what you think of Michael Brooks. With hindsight, how would you characterize him? What's interesting, I mean, I always thought Michael was extremely talented. He had a great sense of humor. His impressions were great. And, at the time I was a big Bernie guy. And so it's kind of interesting to evaluate like his legacy now. Like I've been radicalized to the extreme since he passed. Like when he was alive, I was still a Bernie person. Right. And so, when I look back on his work, I look back on it with a little bit less fondness now than I did when he was alive. And I don't mean to be mean about that because it's obviously a horrible tragedy that he died. He was my age. So it's obviously just a horrible thing, and it was a shock to see and hear. But yeah, I mean, my politics are not what they were back then. And it's possible his wouldn't be either. But whatever difference is, it was obviously an extreme talent. And it's a very sad thing that he passed away.
Okay, as far as Vanguard, we don't comment too much, but since it came up, okay, so the other day, this was like Inception level grifting. They were commenting on, I can't remember who now, someone commenting on they were commenting on Russell Brand commenting on Joe Rogan, maybe. It was 3 levels of commentary. Right. And Russell Brand brought up Marcus Aurelius. And Zach stops and pauses the video and goes, okay, all of these guys, they're into Marcus Aurelius. And like, he was like a prince. And all these tech bro guys, they're all like.
Prince Marcus.
He was like the founder of like Stoicism. You stupid motherfucker. Okay, yeah. He was an emperor. His book is called Meditations. He was not a founder of Stoicism. He was an adherent to Stoicism. And to blame poor Marcus Aurelius, who was one of the greatest thinkers in history, one of the greatest philosophers in history, to blame him for tech bros absconding with his work and using it to justify their ridiculous levels of privilege, because yeah, they do. Hey, look, he was an emperor talking about humility and decency, and that's me. That's me. I have all of these imperial privileges, but I'm walking a stoic path. And yeah, they do. Just like stockbrokers and business people like to steal the art of war and claim it as their own, when actually it's a book about how to minimize conflict and avoid war, and they take it as this very macho thing about how to defeat your enemy. So that was just it was incredibly stupid, incredibly shallow. And hey, man, I understand you talk on a mic a lot. Shit comes up that you don't know about. You can't know everything. If you don't know about it, shut the fuck up. Just don't talk about it.
Did you hear about the Marcus Aurelius, the new text they found, the woke mind virus? That was a hidden. Yeah. They just uncovered that.
Was that part of it?
That was at Pompeii.
It was with the Dead Sea Scrolls. Oh,
it was excavated at Pompeii. It was the new.
When they dug up those paintings.
Yeah, there were new tablets called "The Woke Mind Virus" by Marcus Aurelius.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. Miss you all. Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate that. Refer to me as MFer, please. Thank you. All right, I'll make a note, Tony B.
All right, Tony.
All right, you got it. Joseph Roman became a show member. Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. Kerry Scott, you promised I'd be the third person with a soundbite for my raps. Now that I'm back from tour, more rhymes coming. It's evident we're malevolent. You were on tour, Kerry Scott? You should go on tour with Macklemore. You should open for Macklemore. That's a good tour.
What was that song? I sent it over to Tusker. Somebody sent us this communist rap. Was that the one who sent that over?
It must have been.
There was that communist thing.
Yeah,
it was pretty good actually. I wanted to play it on the show. It was in the middle of all the Jimmy stuff. I totally forgot.
All right, we will get to some more Rumble rants in a second here. Pardon me, and super chats, but let's go to segment number 2. All right, Russell, take this away. This is an interesting development in this little world of ours.
Yes, so this is a telenovela level plot twist for Do Dissidents. So as you all know, I've been pretty outspoken on trans activism or radical trans activism, which not to be confused with being anti-trans as some would have it. And so one of the first kind of big guests that we had was Buck Angel.
Talking point.
So now Buck has gone in a pretty interesting direction on Zionism and Israel. So now I had heard rumors of this. People had mentioned it to me. But just to show you, Keaton is not the mild-mannered reporter that he appears to be with those glasses. He's actually an instigator. Keaton sent this to me. This whole segment would not even be happening if Keaton had not decided in his wisdom to send me this tweet. So Buck called out this gay man for saying that even if Palestinians are homophobic, he still supports their right to be free. So let's take a look at that video and then we'll discuss.
Talking point going around that I'd really like to address, which is that, oh, you know, you're gay and Hamas would do X, Y, and Z to gay people, and how could you support blah, 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 because, you know, they would just have you killed anyway. I find that to be such a false equivalency. And let me be entirely clear, when I say I would stand up for the liberation of Palestine, even if every single one of them was homophobic.
First off, those aren't talking points.
Okay, first off, I just want to say we should start if we really want to, grow the channel. Apparently, the way to grow the channel is do a split screen where on the left side you have somebody saying something that you find ridiculous, and then you just do like this. You go.
Yeah, we can do that. Have
a little hat.
Yeah, that would save our voices
that's not that
too.
hard. Yeah,
that's not hard.
Save our vocal cords. Yeah, yeah, right. Exactly. We can do that. Yeah. You can monetize those. Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah.
Anyway,
continue.
let's finish it before we.
Yes, let's finish it.
Every single one of them was homophobic.
First off, those aren't talking points. Those are facts. Secondly, every single one of them are homophobic. So I would love to see you just go over there and say what you say here in your comfortable little space in America where many gays fought for you to be able to even say that. What a shame.
Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, I'm just assuming people know, but not everybody will. Buck Angel is a trans man who has been very outspoken against what some might term radical gender ideology, treating kids with puberty blockers and hormones, men and women's sports, men identifying as women, using that as an entree to women's spaces such as prisons, rape crisis centers, locker rooms. So we're completely in alignment with that, and we did a 2-hour interview about these subjects way back, where really I was bringing Buck Angel on to show that not all trans people believe in those things, that many trans people who don't, their voices are suppressed, and to run through exactly why I had those views, which I think at that time, even more of the left had not been exposed to a reasonable argument against those ideas, which was why I felt it was important. And I've always referenced him. I actually invited him to come on during the run of the Jimmy Dore show, and he never responded. And now I think I know why.
Yeah,
that was very strange to me.
Time.
Like, like, why would you not want a bigger platform for your message than, I mean, you came on our show when we had 5,000 subscribers
6, 7,
or something.
Whatever it was.
So why would you not want to come on to Jimmy's show now? So that might explain it. So this is what he said about this in his tweet, quoting the guy: "I would stand up for the liberation of Palestine," which in his editor note he puts in Hamas. I don't think the guy said Hamas. "Even if every single one of them was homophobic," says the gay man who lives in America with gay rights to walk the street, looking however he likes and loving whoever he likes. So tired of these entitled queers not even understanding the space they live in, and how many gays fought for us to even be able to walk hand in hand when in Palestine you would be tortured and killed. Do you know where gay Palestine people live? In Israel, because Israel is LGBT friendly and an actual democracy." Hey, Keaton, didn't they just shut down Al Jazeera?
Well, exactly. Yes,
they just shut down Al Jazeera.
This guy, he does say Hamas, but he doesn't say it as, he doesn't mean it as being synonymous with the Palestinian people. He means it as a governing body. Yes, it's homophobic. That's what he means. He's not saying that all Palestinians are Hamas, which is the formulation that Buck makes, not just in this tweet, but in subsequent tweets as well.
Right. Palestine is run by Hamas, who hate gays. So what are you actually fighting for? If you are fighting for the liberation of Palestine, then free Palestine from Hamas. Okay, so I responded to this. And I think pretty kindly, right? I led with, "We love you," right? "Buck, we love you, man. And we know you're probably getting a lot of Zionist propaganda from you partner. He's in a relationship with a Jewish woman."
To do. Oh, yeah.
Yes,
exactly. Always a nice thing. Yeah.
You know, you watch the show. I always blame Keaton's wife when he fucks up.
Yeah.
But you have no idea what you're talking about in this area. Please stop discussing this until you educate yourself. Start here. Now, this was before I had my breakthrough. I probably would have led with Tentora after my friend told me that. But I started with Abby Martin's Gaza Fights for Freedom. And I did recommend Tentora, which some people I saw were asking. This is a great documentary, really about the founding of Israel through the lens of what they did to the people in one town called Tentora, where they make a very good case that they mass executed these people, took their houses, and buried them in mass graves. So that's very well worth checking out if you haven't seen it. So Buck then responded to me, "Okay, keep spewing your Jew hate." I said, "We're Jewish. You are sure you're Jewish?" So he meant, "Are you sure you're Jewish?" Which, I'm sorry, that's a pretty funny thing for somebody who is trans to be saying to somebody. "Are you sure you're Jewish? Are you sure you're trans? Are you sure you're a man?" That's a very funny place to go for him. "Are you sure you're a Zionist and not just an audience-captured grifter?" was my response. And honestly, I think that's probably what it is, and we'll get into that. So then in another thread on the same, response, the same line, somebody tries to explain this to Buck. They're not fighting for Hamas. They're fighting for the Palestinian people, gay, straight, bi, etc. Is the message clear yet? Buck responds, Palestine is Hamas. Learn something. To which Wine and Dine here responds, the innocent people being massacred are not Hamas. There. That's my point. The innocent people are being used by Hamas as shields.
Which is not his point. You lump them all together. I mean,
right.
Yeah,
you just said Palestine is Hamas.
That's a formulation
and
that the Zionists always say, which is there are no innocent Palestinians. That's what
there
they
are
say.
No innocents. Yeah. They all support Hamas. Okay, so Buck, you say, and I'm sure you're going to see this because of the way we're going to put you on blast later on Twitter. So I'm sure you're going to see this segment. So Buck, I'm speaking directly to you. So you tell this person to learn something, while at the same time questioning my Jewish identity without the benefit of being Jewish yourself. Which, listen, I'm not saying you have to be Jewish to speak on this subject. I don't like when other people play that game. I'm not playing that game. But you don't go to, are you sure you're Jewish? Because I'm disagreeing with you about Zionism. That is over the line. And honestly, I would have expected better from you. But okay, you say learn something. So maybe you should learn something. Okay, so you're horrified. You're horrified and upset by Hamas. Do you know who created Hamas? Do you know where Hamas came from? Do you know why Hamas was created? Oh, EU's Borrell says Israel financed creation of Gaza rulers Hamas. Okay, so there was a period where the Palestinian Authority had gained enough legitimacy that there was a lot of pressure from the international community on Israel to recognize a Palestinian state ruled by the Palestinian Authority. Israel funded a group of religious fanatics who later took the name Hamas. They were not originally called Hamas, in order to derail the peace process because they did not want the Palestinians to have a state. So they needed a rival power so that they could say, well, we can't possibly give them a state. Look who rules them, Hamas. Now, if you doubt that, if you say, well, this guy's talking out of turn, well, this was from the New York Times. Until October 7th, Israel was funding Hamas. Israel drove suitcases stuffed with cash into Gaza to keep Hamas in power. That's from liberal rag in good standing, the New York Times. This is Business Insider reporting on the New York Times article, but you can look up the New York Times article. I believe it was published December 14th, if I'm not mistaken. You can very easily look that up.
Yeah.
Was it earlier?
Yeah. Well, this piece is dated December 11th, so it must have been a couple days before.
Okay. So you can go back and you can check that out. So if you really have a problem with Hamas, the people you should really be blaming are the Israelis, the Israeli government, and the people who put this government in power. Some people are trying to deflect to Netanyahu. Well, Netanyahu has been in Israeli politics for over 20 years. You just said it was a democracy. So that reflects the will of the Israeli people, right? If you believe it's a democracy. So don't tell me it's Netanyahu's fault and he doesn't represent the will of the Israeli people, and then tell me it's a democracy. Okay, so now you might ask, well, why can't they peacefully protest for their rights? Well, they did peacefully protest for their rights. It was called the March of Return. They did it for over a year. Let's see how that worked out for them when the Palestinian people tried to peacefully protest for their rights.
ولا شيء بالعكس احنا بصدورنا العارية امام قوة كبيرة من الجيش اللي هي مدرعاتهم واسلحتهم وغازهم وطائراتهم. احنا بالعكس احنا سلميين واعزل السلاح ما فيش معنا اي شيء.
حجة لا جاية أنا فلسطينية يجب علي
The evidence of numerous blatant war crimes in these regular massacres are there for all to see. But let's just take a look at what the United Nations found in their investigation. facts that cannot be refuted. The UN report released February 28, 2019, documented the extensive human rights violations during the Great March of Return through 2018. Of the 183 fatalities caused by sniper fire investigated by the UN Commission, 171 were clearly murdered, shot in the head or torso. Nearly 8,000 people were wounded by live ammunition. Over that 8-month period, 21 were left permanently paralyzed, and 122 more required limb amputations, including 20 children. In stark contrast, the UN report found 0 fatalities on the Israeli side. Not one Israeli soldier was killed or seriously wounded. 4 claimed scratches from thrown rocks and could only cite property damage from kites and balloons as reason to continue the ongoing massacre.
Flaming kites and balloons over the border.
Throwing rocks comes with a death sentence. You can see that Hashem Fayez Abu Okel is posing no threat to Israeli lives. He's not armed, and he's not breaking through the border fence. But when the shot rings out, it is he who is shot in the head.
All right, so that is from Abby Martin's documentary from 2019, Gaza Fights for Freedom. So, Buck, are you learning something yet? Are you learning something looking at this? I hope you are, and I hope you're going to follow up and actually take a look at that.
Well, hang on a second, because I have a feeling that he has learned a lot of this in the past. And
no, hang on. Not yet.
Oh, no? We don't want to show that yet?
Not yet. Okay, so in the Palestinian Great March of Return, these are just some of the figures of people who were killed and wounded. This was 365 days in. This was something they did every Friday. 266 killed, 50 children, 6 women, 1 elderly man, number of wounded, 30,398. Now, you just saw the people marching. Did they look dangerous to you? And I had to cut around that because you actually see this kid getting shot in Abby Martin's documentary, and you see a lot of that. So, Buck, you want to learn something, you should definitely take a look at that. Now, if you don't want to listen to us, if you don't want to believe us, if you feel that we're bad actors, you know what? We have somebody discussing this in an interview who I think you love and respect. His name is Buck Angel. So let's take a look at what you had to say about this a year ago.
Yeah, so I want to just set this up because, we had this. So this is me likening, radical trans activists to ultra-Zionist Jews, people pretending to represent a larger group that they don't necessarily represent, right? So I tried to make this comparison, and this was an admittedly crude comparison back from March of last year. This was a year ago, a little over a year ago when we had him on the show. This issue just incidentally comes up. Talking to Russell about this a couple days ago. Russell and I are both Jewish guys who obviously...
And I just want to point out, this is OG Do Dissidents fans will look on that bookcase with fond reminiscence, my fisheye lens bookcase, before I fixed it, out of fear it was going to kill me. Back then, we had people with bets on when this was going to collapse on me. And you should just take a look at how fatherhood ages a person, man. Look at Keaton.
Yeah,
he looks like he really looks like he's posing for his high school picture there.
Yeah.
And look at him now. Wow. Jesus. Those twins are hard on you, man. They're hard on a body.
They take it out of you.
They take it out of you. Okay.
I was talking to Russell about this a couple days ago. Russell and I are both Jewish guys who obviously, this is a left show. We criticize Israel a lot, the state of Israel, the government of Israel. Yeah. And I noticed that whenever somebody criticizes the Israeli government, a bunch of people pile on them saying, how dare you criticize Israel? That's anti-Semitic. Almost none of the people who make that charge are actually Jews themselves. So as a Jew here, I'm saying, hey, you're not. He's very receptive to that. Now, just a note, this was a year ago, so that was a lot more true then than it is now, obviously. Now, a lot of Jews are, because the stakes are much higher now in their mind. So that part is a little dated, so forgive that. But here we go. Here we go. Actually helping. You may think you're standing up for me, but you're not, because all you're doing is perpetuating this sort of false stereotype that all Jews support Israel. Right. And so it's kind of a similar thing, I think.
It's not true. You know, my partner's Jewish. I'm not raised Jewish, but, you know, I'm converting actually. But that being said, I completely get it. You know, my mother-in-law is full on pro-Israel and I'm not. So we'd get into it all the time. But that's okay. I don't have an issue with that. You know, we get to have these conversations and I learn from her and she learns from me. I'm not the guy who sits down. Just so you know, I'm not the guy who's not willing to have that conversation. And I'm not also willing to get my feelings hurt on some level. That's how you kind of move forward and grow.
So if you notice.
Oh, wow.
He says, I'm not super pro-Israel. Let's play it one more time. And then I want to play back. I included just because I have to, because it's my favorite joke that I've ever made in the history of the show. We will play that too.
Converting actually, but that being
converting, right? And so it's kind of a similar thing. I think
it's not true. You know, my partner's Jewish. I'm not raised Jewish, but you know, I'm converting actually. But that being said, I completely get it. You know, my mother-in-law is full on pro-Israel and I'm not. So we'd get into it all the time. But that's okay. I don't have an issue with that. You know, we get to have these conversations and I learn from her and she learns from me. I'm not the guy who sits down. Just so you know, I'm not the guy who's not willing to have that conversation. And I'm not also willing to get my feelings hurt on some level. That's how you kind of move forward and grow, is by having difficult conversations.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you thought becoming a man was hard, wait till you try becoming Jewish.
Oh no, dude!
That's my joke I've ever cracked.
Is by having difficult conversations.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you thought becoming a man was hard, wait till you try becoming Jewish. That's my best work.
Oh no, dude! I'm in there. Trust me. I'm in there.
Yet. That was my best work. But more importantly, yes.
Okay, so you're willing to have these conversations. You're willing to grow. You're willing to listen. You're not just gonna shut it down. Huh.
Talking point going around that I really like to...
First off, those aren't talking points. Those are facts. Secondly, every single one of them are homophobic. So I would love to see you just go over there and say what you say here in your comfortable little space in America where many gays fought for you to be able to even say that. What a shame.
Well, not just that, but he also calls Russell a Jew hater and questions his Judaism. Is that not shutting down a conversation? And this is a conversation, by the way, you claimed to be on our side of when we had you here. Now, were you just bullshitting us because you didn't want it to be a contentious thing on a topic that you weren't here to discuss? Maybe, but likely not, because that was something that he kind of volunteered. Like, I just made that point as an analogy. He could have very easily skated past. Like, I didn't ask for his take on Israel-Palestine. He volunteered it.
No, I think that was his honest take. So this is my working theory. And really, this comes at a perfect moment when I just attended these dissident dialogues where I got insight into this whole anti-woke grift that I really didn't have before. Okay, so unlike me and Keaton, who, let's face it, we're charming and funny motherfuckers. We can, and we have each other to bounce off of. So we can kind of sustain our show. But more importantly than that, we're covering current events. And current events constantly change. There's constantly something new coming up to keeping it fresh. When you are this solo content creator who has carved out this very niche lane of commenting on the excesses of trans activism. Okay, so even me who agrees with your take on this, I don't want to watch that. Like, how much am I going to watch it? How many times do I need to see you bash the guy in the Planet Fitness locker room? How many times do I need to see that take? So who is really watching this channel? These are the kind of people who paid $3.75 and up approximately to go to the dissident dialogues.
Allegedly,
These are
rumor
people,
has it.
rumor has, smart people are saying.
Smart people are saying.
Who are these people? These are people who are absolutely obsessed with the culture wars, who process everything that happens in the world through the lens of the culture wars. And you have to keep those people engaged and interested. So now this conflict came up, and you found an angle that is kind of within your niche where you can grift off this conflict in order to keep your audience interested with a new cultural outrage. These damn kids, these queers, they don't realize what would happen to them. Right? And your dumb as dog shit audience is going to go along with it. The ones that are left, because honestly, when I tweeted back at Buck, a lot of people were talking about how disappointed they are in Buck. So, Buck, we have you on tape saying something completely different from what you're saying now. Do I think that you're making it up? No, I think you're financially and personally incentivized to go in this lane in order to maintain and also grow your audience. This is going to give you access to a Zionist audience that might not have necessarily been interested in men and women's sports, right? Now they're going to come, oh, look at this trans person. And they love that narrative. When I went, the second protest I covered, which was outside Columbia, before things got really heated, when they were still protesting outside, I have a guy on video going up to the Orthodox Jews who were pro-Palestine. Are you for gay marriage? Are you for gay marriage? Are you for gay marriage? What the fuck does that have to do with anything? Now, now this gay man, this is what I will agree with you on. If you're saying you're queer for Palestine and you think that's returned in the Muslim world, you think the Muslim world is liberal about gays, and this is all one congregation of people against heterosexual, white, patriarchal heteronormativity, yeah, that's an unintelligible position. But this guy, to his credit, made it clear that that's not where he's coming from. He made it clear, and I've always said this, if you're saying queers for Palestine, understanding that the Muslim community tends to be conservative about those issues, but nonetheless, you are going to support their right to exist. You're going to support their right to live in their own society. And you're also going to support their right not to be genocided, not to be murdered. That is, I can't think of a more noble position than that. And you're not taking on his position because he has acknowledged in his formulation that he's not necessarily accepted in these places. Nonetheless, he's going to stand up for their right to have their freedom. That is a very noble vision, which you do not actually take on. You did not actually take that on. All you did was launch ad hominem attacks on a man who expressed a very noble and humanitarian idea that you really did not address. So something else you might want to take a look at. You say they're all Hamas. Okay, 13,000 estimated number of children killed in the Strip. And that's probably much higher. This is from April 30th. 19,000 who have been orphaned and have no adult to care for them. 10, average number of children per day who have lost at least one limb, according to Save the Children. Are they all Hamas? Are they all Hamas? Even if what you're saying is true, even if Hamas is using the civilian population as human shields, does that justify this? That's an honest question. Does that justify this kind of slaughter of civilians? Does that look like the world's most moral army to you, as Zionists like to claim? And this doesn't even get into the women. 70% of the people being killed in Gaza are women and children. Not to mention the fact that, of course, of the men being killed, very few of them are actually Hamas.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Keith.
No, I was just going to say, by the way, check your phone for a second. Yeah, and the fact that he did this major reversal is really indicative of, I think, audience capture. That's what Glenn Greenwald talked about. And so I think that is probably a working theory I would run with, right? I think it's audience capture. And I think a lot of the anti-woke crowd, they ultimately are victim shamers and victim blamers. Russell floated this theory to me the other day that I think a lot of conservatives are reflexively anti-change, and so that's where a lot of that impulse comes from. Well, if you're reflexively anti-change, you're reflexively against people who advocate for change. You see them as whiners, as losers,
right.
victims. Oh, they fetishize their weakness and victimhood, right? And so you tend to view any movement for social change as being born of weakness, born of a complaint with the status quo, right? And so that reflexively, look at these anti-genocide protesters. They have the blue hair. They're lonely. They're ugly. That's what Megyn Kelly said about them, right? They don't get laid enough. They don't get out enough. It's a way of making it sound like these people are less functional than the anti-wokesters, when really the anti-wokesters give off major incel vibes themselves. I mean, a lot of this online trolling community is not really healthy, right? It's not really healthy. Healthy people don't graduate towards that. Gravitate towards that. And so I think it's a way for people to feel like they are more functional than these woke counterparts. And I think that's where a lot of it comes from too.
It's true. And hey, I mean, what you really see with people like Buck who have a platform, it's a grift. It's a grift. It's a money-making thing. You're making money off very frustrated people who are looking for somebody to blame for their frustrations. And the empire loves this. The establishment loves this because on both sides, because it distracts from economics, whether you're talking about woke or you're talking about anti-woke. But Buck is making the formulation that gay people have it great in Israel because it's such a liberal society. Okay, so how liberal is Israel actually? This is something people don't really take on because they're rightly too busy being aghast at the slaughter of the Palestinian people. But let's see what the marriage laws are actually like in Israel. So I took this from a source that you really can't say is anti-Israel. My Jewish Learning. That's about as pro-Israel as you're going to get. Civil marriage in Israel. Okay. According to the country's law, marriages in Israel are performed by sanctioned religious authorities, be they Muslim, Jewish, Druze, or Christian. Within Israel, only the Israeli rabbinate can marry Jewish couples, and the Israeli rabbinate is an exclusively Orthodox institution, so it insists that the marriages its rabbis perform be subject to the strictures of traditional halakha, Jewish law. Because of this policy, a significant portion of the Israeli population cannot marry in Israel. So we're not even talking about gays. That's off the table. Forget about that. Gays cannot get married in Israel. Now, we will talk about civil unions, but they cannot. And not only they, but pretty much nobody who is not does not fulfill the Orthodox definition of being a Jew can actually get married within the boundaries of Israel. The law of return grants anyone with at least one Jewish grandparent and his or her spouse the right to immigrate to and settle in Israel and gain automatic citizenship. But the Israeli rabbinate will only perform the marriage of a person defined as Jewish by Orthodox halakha. In other words, someone born to a Jewish mother or converted through the Orthodox rabbinate. Now, you know what this means. Keaton's dreams just died. His dream of having a second marriage, renewing his vows in Israel, is dead because he is Jewish on his father's side.
That's right.
Keaton is not allowed to get married in Israel.
We were going to renew our vows there next year because the next year will be 10 years. But
he was going to do it on the anniversary of the Nakba.
Yeah, exactly.
As a result, thousands of immigrants admitted to Israel under the law of return cannot marry in Israel because the Israeli rabbinate does not recognize them as Jewish. Since these people are also not affiliated with any other religion, no other religious authority can marry them. The Israeli rabbinate will also not perform marriages prohibited by Jewish law. An interfaith marriage cannot take place in Israel because each of the sanctioned religious authorities in the state will only marry two people who both belong to that religion. By the way, as we were discussing the other day, you know who does allow interfaith marriage? Muslims. They are allowed to marry Christians. I looked it up. Yes, I was wrong about that. They can marry Christians and Jews. So in at least this respect, Muslims are more liberal on marriage than Orthodox Jews are, and the Orthodox Jews control marriage policy in Israel. A Cohen, a man of priestly lineage, yes, for the uninitiated, that is why you find so many Jews with the name Cohen. It is presumed if your name is Cohen, you are descended from the priestly class. Cannot marry a convert or divorcee. A halakhic mamzer, someone born of an adulterous or incestuous relationship, cannot marry anyone other than another mamza. A woman whose husband cannot or does not grant her a Jewish divorce also cannot remarry. Wow, this sounds like a liberal utopia, doesn't it, Keaton? Wow, they're so liberal there. In 2010, Israel passed the civil union law, allowing a couple to marry civilly in Israel if they are both registered as officially not belonging to any religion. So, Buck, you might want to hold off on that conversion. Out of the 300,000 Israelis not recognized as Jewish by the Israeli rabbinate who have no other religious affiliation, only 30,000 are officially registered as without a religion, so only they can take advantage of this law. This law also does not help couples where one member of the couple is registered as Jewish, nor does it help a Jewish couple that cannot or do not want to marry through the Israeli rabbinate. Jewish Israelis who cannot or do not wish to marry through the Israeli rabbinate must explore other options. Since the Israeli Population Registry recognizes civil marriages performed abroad, a growing number of Israelis are marrying in civil ceremonies outside Israel and circumventing the rabbinate altogether. A lot of Israelis apparently go to Cyprus to get married because of the strict regulations. Many religious leaders are concerned that civil marriage and divorce could create a deep rift within Israeli Jewry by enabling the possibility that many halakhic memzerim will be born in Israel. Yuri Paz, in an article on the website of Aish HaTorah, can you tell I got kicked out of Hebrew school when I was 9? An Orthodox Jewish educational organization explains that according to Jewish law, civil marriage, although not ideal, still counts as a valid marriage after the fact. Civil divorce, however, does not count as a valid divorce according to Jewish law. Therefore, if a couple were to marry, either in a religious or a civil ceremony, then divorce civilly without getting a religious divorce, and then the woman were to remarry civilly, any children produced in her second marriage would be mamzerim, since Jewish law would consider her still married to her first husband. You understand? They would consider these kids bastards, so they could only marry another bastard within Israel. By instituting civil marriages and divorces in Israel, the argument goes, the number of mamzerim will rise. Israeli Jews who observe Halakha will not be able to marry growing numbers of Israeli Jews whose parents or grandparents did not. Okay, so listen, I don't want to get it twisted. We always want to make honest arguments here. Yes, gay people like people whose fathers are Jewish or have other reasons why they can't be married in an Orthodox ceremony can leave Israel, or they actually ruled during the pandemic because it became an issue. The Israeli courts ruled you can do it online within jurisdictions that allow that. You can have a civil marriage, but you cannot have a religiously recognized marriage within Israel unless your marriage is sanctioned by the Orthodox rabbinate. Now, that sounds like a kind of apartheid, but it's not just an apartheid for Muslims. It's not just an apartheid for gay people. It's an apartheid basically for everybody who does not qualify as a certain type of Jew. As my long departed dear friend Joey used to say, I was not born under the firm of Jew and Jew. Unless you were born under the firm of Jew and Jew, you cannot get married in Israel. That doesn't sound like this Shangri-La liberal society to me. Now, there are some people who have it even worse than that. Do you want to say anything before we move on, Keaton?
Nope, go ahead.
All right. People who have it even worse than that, predictably, are the Palestinians. This is from 2022. This law has not changed. Israel's Knesset passes law barring Palestinian spouses. It was actually renewing a law that already had been on the books. Israel's parliament on Thursday passed a law denying naturalization to Palestinians from the occupied West Bank or Gaza married to Israeli citizens, forcing thousands of Palestinian families to either emigrate or live apart. The so-called citizenship law passed just before the Knesset disbanded for a holiday recess by a 45-15 majority vote that crossed coalition opposition lines. It replaced a similar temporary order that first passed during the height of a Palestinian uprising in 2003 and was renewed annually until it expired last July when the Knesset failed to secure a simple majority needed to extend it. Proponents say the law helps ensure Israel's security and maintains its Jewish character. Wow. I mean, if that's not an apartheid racist state, what is it? What is it? What do you call that when they are openly saying we need to discriminate against a portion of the population in order to maintain a certain ethnic character? Some Knesset members said it was intended to prevent a gradual right of return for Palestinian refugees who were driven from their homes or fled during the 1948 war surrounding Israel's creation, all while Israel prepares to take in thousands of Ukrainian refugees. The state, quote, the state of Israel is Jewish, and so it will remain, said Simcha Rothman of the far-right religious Zionism Party, a member of the opposition who brought the law forward with Interior Minister Ayelet Shaked. Quote, today, God willing, Israel's defensive shield will be significantly strengthened, he told the Knesset hours before the vote. However, critics say the law discriminates against Israel's 21% Arab minority. And let me explain this. Those people who the Zionists love to hide behind, what do you mean it's an apartheid state? We have Arab people in the government. Okay, these are people who managed to hold on to their land through the Nakba. And they are a very useful propaganda tool for the Israelis because it allows them to claim they're not an apartheid state. But as you can see, they have laws like this that ensure that this population cannot grow beyond that initial population and its descendants. However, critics say the law discriminates against Israel's 21% Arab minority, who are Palestinian by heritage and Israeli by citizenship, by barring them from extending citizenship and permanent residency rights to Palestinian spouses. Quote, it comes off as more xenophobic or racist than other laws because it's not only giving extra rights and privileges to Jewish people, but also preventing certain basic rights only from the Arab population, said Ruth Sha'er, a lawyer with the Association of Civil Rights in Israel. The law also bars the unification of Israeli citizens or residents and spouses from, quote, enemy states, such as Lebanon, Syria, and Iran, but it mostly affects Palestinian women and children, said Sha'er. It is a form of collective punishment, she added, because it infringes on the rights of an entire population based on the racist assumption that they are all prone to terrorism. Israel captured East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza in the 1967 Middle East War. It applies different sets of rules for Jews and Palestinians under its control. Okay, so Buck You said that the people you were debating with needed to learn something. I hope you have learned something from this, because essentially what you are saying, what you are telling people is that if the rights of LGBTQ people are not what you would want them to be within Israel, that is paramount over all other people's rights. That is paramount over the rights of the Palestinian people who want to make honest arguments. Am I going to say you're just as good as a gay person in Saudi Arabia as you are in Israel? No, I'm not going to say that, but I will say you're a lot better off as an Arab or a Muslim or a Palestinian in Saudi Arabia than you are in Israel. But what you're saying is you don't care about that. What you're saying is your narrow identity concerns not only trump your feeling for these people's basic human rights, it trumps your feeling for these people's basic right to live. And to that, I have to respond. If you don't give a shit about anyone's rights outside of your narrow identity group, why should anyone give a shit about yours? Why should anyone care? Why should anyone who's not in your identity group care about your rights if you are not able to extend that to another group that is suffering a kind of brutalization that, as you point out, people of your identity cannot even dream of in this country? But you don't seem to care about that. And you call this guy out for saying something that's actually very noble. Well, let me tell you something. This guy is more of a man than you will ever be, not because of what's between your legs, but because of what is coming out of your mouth. Now, as I saw this week, people can change their minds. And I got the impression of you as a basically good-hearted person. I hope you will take this in. I hope you will watch that Abby Martin video. I hope you will watch Tantura. And I hope your desire to grift and bring in a new Zionist audience, or maybe please your relatives, does not supersede your basic decency. And of course, you are welcome to come on and discuss this.
All right. Excellent. I don't even have anything to add to that. That's a good out point. That would just be, if I were to add anything, it would just be like a post-credit scene, who really sticks around for those, right?
Yeah,
most
sure.
people don't.
We play the Animal House theme.
Yeah, exactly. Pat Donahue, have some euros to keep you both in the pocket of the Irish leftist lobby. Well, thank you, Patrick. Appreciate that. A little late this month. We almost bailed. Yeah. It's the 9th already. On the 10th, that's it. That's the deadline. So good on you for getting in before the deadline. Lenin was off by a Zionist evangelical, says Philip Blair. Thryden, been seeing a resurgence of Nick Fuentes videos on Twitter in response to the influence of Israel AIPAC. He's a real anti-Semite, and this hurts a good faith critique of Zionism. PSYOP or just ignorance? Well, Elon's always very forgiving of the anti-wokesters, right? That's his main free speech cause. So it makes sense he'd put him back on. And Elon is also an Israel supporter, and you're right. Having a guy like that who's been kicked off Rumble, has had videos taken down for Rumble because they're too squarely anti-Semitic, yeah, that does hurt the cause more than it helps. So you may be onto something. Maybe it is a bit of an op on Elon's part. Wouldn't put it past him. Put up a guy who's going to discredit the anti-Zionist movement because he's a real anti-Semite. Something Elon would do. Fits the bill. CWO2, I remember that cookbook from Mrs. Seinfeld and the plagiarized recipe scandal that came with it. Shameful she got away with it. Money. Yes. George is getting upset. You're killing settler colonial George. Yes. Thank you, Amadeus. Appreciate that. I like that one. To help someone recover from Zionism, show them Dr. Viktor Frankl's 1988 landmark speech in Vienna, collective guilt does not exist. Thank you for that. Kelly Messiah, in Palestine would be killed by Israel before you even knew you were gay. I don't even know. I don't follow that one.
I got it.
He's
saying they're killing children before they would even
before they
be
would
aware
even mature
of their
to that point.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, understand. Got it. Bring on Indy Nile. He's a gay Palestinian therapist living in Amsterdam, diagnosed as mental disease known as Zionism. Thank you, Sherelle Drive SoCal. Appreciate that very much. Dan, thank you, Dan. At this point, I really don't understand what is it that people don't get about what's happening to Palestinians? Truly bizarre, my friends. Well, it's just out of sight. Whether it's Jerry Seinfeld or Buck Angel, it's like they just don't consider it. Or Bill Maher, like they don't pay much mind to it because in their mind, well, these are backwards people and they must deserve what they have coming to them. For that
honestly, Buck really surprises me. That really surprised me, especially because he said that in our interview.
And how
do you do such a 180?
It's not, that's a 180. It's one thing to be radicalized in a particular direction. Like I was always left wing. I was radicalized to totally break from the Democratic Party throughout 2021, culminating in the Build Back Better betrayal, right? But my politics didn't change. My approach to it, my theory of change changed, right? I didn't go from being anti-genocide to pro-genocide. Like that's different. That's a different kind of switch. Has anyone ever asked junkless Kendall Kalinsky Ball what is a man? Thank you. Master Yoda, remember when Obama opined that a heckler wouldn't behave that way at work? Yes, I do remember that. At work, if you protest, you get fired. Libs pay lip service to civil rights, but brutally enforce order for themselves. Yes, thank you, Master Yoda. Appreciate that. Gina and Heidi, after my rep voted for HR 6090, I emailed him to ask if he was, can't say that, and told him to eat shit. No, this is not Scott Adams, but everyone should be as mad as he is. Thank you, Gina and Heidi. DD being in the pockets of Big Poor is a noble quest. Thank you. It's a me, Sarah P. Appreciate that. Check out the 1980 LP America by Tony O'Kay. Timely then, even more so now. Thank you. Okay, we will move on. We're going to do our patron scroll in a little bit. We're going to do one more segment first here. Well, I missed the episode where Adam Friedland hosted with Russ. Probably hilarious. Haha, yeah, I did look a little like Adam Friedlandish back then. My hair was longer and I was thinner.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the haircut, the lighting, and the beard. Like in that, he was very clean shaven. Yeah, kind of like a youngish haircut there.
I was also thinner because I'm burning it on, but I have not been able to. It's a struggle to find time to exercise. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I have put on a few. I'm trying to get skinny and fit for the live show.
Me too.
Yeah,
me too.
But it's not going to happen. We're going to see a couple of fat roly-poly bastards on that stage. It's not going to happen. It's a lost cause.
It's going to be like if Art Carney and Lou Costello had a show.
We're going to go out there in triple XL t-shirts so we look thin.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my plan now.
We're going to wear muumuus.
My goal was first to lose some weight for the live show. Now my goal is to just buy a double XL t-shirt.
Clothes, yeah.
Buy larger clothes. That's easier when you think about it.
No, I'm doing it. Since I got back from LA, I've lost 5 pounds.
Oh,
I'm
good.
on track.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm on track for my target.
Nice. All righty. Let's go on to our third segment of the day, folks, here. Okay, so what have we said about Piers Morgan this whole time? He'll do 3 embarrassing interviews where he totally humiliates himself as if he's never learned anything from any of his previous interviews, and then he'll do one good one, and then he'll forget what he learned in the good one when it comes time to grill the next pro-ceasefire, right, anti-genocide person, right? So let's see what happens after this. But this was so good that it almost feels like a pool hustler, who loses on purpose 10 games in a row so he can get the big fish to come in and then boom, side pockets him. This is Piers Morgan interviewing an Israeli spokesman trying to pin down the number of civilians killed from the source, from an Israeli official. And you see how absolutely just broken this guy becomes under the mildest of questioning. So here is Piers Morgan versus, I don't even know this guy's name. I couldn't find it, but who cares? Here he is.
How many civilians do you believe you've killed?
We don't have exact figures, as you know, it's the fog of war.
But you've got exact numbers for Hamas terrorists you've killed. Why wouldn't you know how many civilians you've killed?
Because obviously our focus is to go after the Hamas terrorists. And
hang on, that does imply that you're putting a bigger premium on killing Hamas terrorists in terms of numbers and accountability than you are on innocent civilians. That can't be right, surely. If you know exactly how many Hamas terrorists you've killed, you must know how many civilians you've killed. Otherwise, you're prioritizing the lives of terrorists over innocent people.
Or you're not keeping count of anything. You're just lying as you massacre the entire population, because what he's saying is true. It logically doesn't even make sense. If you kill a military-age man and you identify them as a militant or you identify them as a civilian, that means you'd have some idea of the civilian count. But he's saying, no, I don't have any idea. I don't have any idea.
Piers, with respect, don't put words into my mouth, please. I didn't say exactly 14,000. I said around 14,000, whereas Hamas will come out with precise numbers that statisticians will look at.
Give me a ballpark number for civilians.
Well, you can use the ballpark as far as the Hamas figures, which I reject as being false.
Well, if they're
so
false,
you can use the ballpark figure for the Hamas figures, which I reject. So then you can't use them as a ballpark, right? What you're saying is you have no information, because they have no information. These were absolute lies from the outset. They have no idea how many militants they've killed, because obviously, just take a look at what's going on. They are not discerning between militants and civilians. These are not targeted strikes. If they were, 2/3 of casualties would not be women and children. So it's just like transparently ridiculous. That's why this guy, he just crumbles. He just crumbles under this questioning. And at a certain point, he literally freezes to the point where you think the video freezes, but it's not. It's him freezing.
I gave you the numbers that I had.
No, you've told me you know how many Hamas terrorists you've killed, but you don't seem to have any idea how many civilians you've killed. I'm just bemused. Why wouldn't you keep count of both?
I don't have that information to give you, Piers. If I did, I would.
You literally no idea how many civilians you've been killing.
I can tell you definitively that.
So now he's saying, now he pivots from I don't know to, well, I'm not at liberty to say. Right? That's the pivot now. All right, here we go.
Aim is to go after Hamas.
No, hang on. I'm sorry to push you on this. That's quite extraordinary. You're an official spokesman for the Israeli government, and you have no idea how many civilians you've killed. I thought you just told me that you were particularly careful about not killing civilians. But if you don't know how many you've killed, how can you say that with any certainty?
Because even if you were to go by a ratio of the Hamas figures, we would still be far ahead of any Western army.
That wasn't my question. You know it wasn't my question.
But not only was it not his question, how can you say that if you don't have a civilian death count? If you don't have a civilian death count, then you can't possibly say what the ratio is civilian to militant death count. That's literally impossible if you have no idea how many civilians you've killed. So not only was that not his question, that is what you're saying there is logically impossible. You must be lying. There's no other explanation for that. That's just a bald-faced lie. If you don't know how many civilians you killed, you can't complete a ratio without two sets of numbers. A ratio is one number, colon, a second number. If you don't have the second number, then you don't have a ratio. You can't make any claims about the ratio.
Well, we're seeing this with all the Israeli spokespeople. It's like they've been boxing amateurs for 75 years, and all of a sudden they got thrown in the ring for a real fight, and they have no idea how to handle that. Nobody's ever asked them a hard question.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Don't have the information.
You literally have no idea how many civilians you've killed.
It's not that I don't know. I'm not authorized to give the information. I don't have the information.
That's complete nonsense. Why are you authorized to give me the number of terrorists you've killed, but not the number of civilians? I don't understand. Can you explain?
I get nervous every time that clip comes. I think my computer froze. I think my Wi-Fi froze whenever I see that portion. Every time. Even though I know it's coming. Look at this.
Somebody pulled out a string of garlic.
Can you explain?
It literally looks like the video freezes.
I don't understand. Can you explain?
I'm sorry. Every Israeli spokesperson looks like a human familiar from Blade.
Yes. Yes. Indeed. That is just incredible.
Go after Hamas. We will ensure that we.
But you want me to believe you're being incredibly careful about how many civilians you're killing, and you have an amazing exemplary record, but you don't know how many civilians you're killing. So how do I know you've been careful?
Piers, when the dust settles, we will come out with the proper numbers. Hamas runs to the press daily with false.
When the dust settles, a lot of people will have died, and you know how many Hamas you've killed, but you don't know how many civilians you've killed. And I'm just asking you why. Why is it you've kept a record of one, but not the other?
I personally don't have that information to give to you. You can ask me over and over. I'm not going to come up with more information. I don't.
He does ask him over and over, and that doesn't get any more interesting from there. It just repeats for another 2 or 3 minutes. But okay, so Piers, Russ made an appeal to Buck Angel earlier in the show. I'll make an appeal to you, even though you're far less likely to see this. Next time you do one of these interviews, you think you can carry the memory of this interview with you so that it's not back to square one next time? And next time someone asks, do you condemn the IDF? Say yes, because if you can't condemn that, you're no better than people who in your mind can't condemn the Palestinian fighters. Right? So like if you are going to hound people with that question incessantly, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn? They ask you, do you condemn the IDF? How about yes? How about yes? How hard is that? If you can't condemn that, you are no one's moral superior. That is a guy gaslighting and lying to the point where he freezes under the mildest of prodding about the number of civilians that his fighting force has murdered. And yes, they have murdered them. So why don't we graduate to level 2 conversations? Because Piers, wants a lot of credit for hosting these debates. And I see a lot of people in this space give him a lot of credit for hosting these debates. Okay, fair enough. He hosts these debates. What's the point of hosting debates if you don't learn from them? Because Piers Morgan, next week, I guarantee you, he's going to be right back as if this conversation never happened. Well, what do you want Israel to do? Well, if you're going to, then what's the point of doing this? Like, the whole point of engaging in dialogue is to learn from dialogue. And so I hope you carry that memory into your next episode.
Okay, Keaton, man, you are putting me in a position where I have to defend Piers Morgan. You motherfucker. All right. There is a place for somebody who just asks questions, and if he perceptively switches from just asking questions to advocacy, he's not going to be able to get people like this fucking android.
What do you mean?
Once he starts doing advocacy, people like that are going to stop coming on his show.
Well, he has no problem doing advocacy for the IDF. He will condemn the other side. So why can't he condemn this side? That's not advocacy. He's already does advocacy.
Well, isn't he inherently in this segment? I'm saying he can't really go further than that if he wants to be able to keep getting these ghouls to come on his show. It's about as far as he can go.
I mean, I guess there's an argument for that, but it's very frustrating to see a guy not learn from this over and over again. That's true. I mean, they just would blacklist you. They just wouldn't come on.
That's it. They just wouldn't come on.
But maybe we don't need them to come on. Maybe we don't need to hear from them anymore. But aren't we to the point where we don't need to hear from them anymore?
No.
Like, what do we need to hear from these people anymore?
We think it is.
What's going on. These people belong in fucking prison. They don't belong in a TV studio. They belong in fucking jail. And we need people to start coming to that conclusion as soon as possible.
And the best way to get them to that conclusion is to keep letting them speak in front of a camera.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Tim Canterbury, all the edgy comedians like Burr, Rock, Chappelle, etc. have gone quiet over Gaza. And why isn't Jon Stewart out on the streets with the protesters? It's a terrible thing.
It's a clarifying moment.
Yeah. Yep. It's a clarifying moment for sure. For sure. Macklemore's been speaking at the concert still. I'm going to drop that clip today. So YouTube put an age restriction on the video of his song because it has some bloody images. And they're disturbing images. They're not particularly graphic. It's nothing we haven't seen online before. Certainly a lot of the images that we've seen online have been a million times worse. But yeah, they age restricted that. So that has like 28 million views on Twitter. Last I checked, it's got to be up over 30 now. It's got, I don't even know how many on Instagram, probably even more. But on YouTube, it's like under 1 million because of that age restriction. They don't pump it out in the algorithm as much. You can't watch it unless you're logged in on your account. I mean, they are suppressing that. Not surprisingly. MK Ultra, disappointed DD doesn't drink coffee on these morning shows. Got my coffee right here, my friend.
I do. What are you talking about? Haven't you been watching for a while? Are you new? I always drink coffee at the top of the show. Yeah. This one's so early that I already had my coffee by the time we went on the air.
Yeah, Russell usually drinks coffee on the night shows, too.
Yeah. I usually have a smaller cup at night.
Yep. Peter version 1, 10 children killed playing football. Yeah, Hamas fault. Yep. No, it's incredible. I mean, that's why I would like to see Piers Do a little better. I understand you can't take a side, but like I would, there's I think there's a lot of area between taking a side and doing what he does, which is essentially reset his brain between all these interviews. That's the way I think he handles it.
Listen, man, after Dershowitz, you think Bree's getting any Israeli spokespeople? That's the price you pay for that.
All right.
It's like the old Warner Brothers cartoon. You can only it's a great trick, but you can only do it once.
But he does express opinions. He does express, sympathy for the Zionist side. It's not like he just asks questions on that side too. Like he doesn't just ask questions. To the extent that he editorializes, he does so on Israel's behalf. So I would like to see a little more balance there at the very least.
I think in that clip he came pretty close to editorializing for the Palestinian position.
No, that's why I thought it was worth covering. We don't cover much of Piers Morgan.
And I'm saying
for exactly
he can do
the reason
that, but that's as far as he can go if he wants to keep getting them on.
All right, fair enough. Used to watch. Oops, sorry. Thanks, Where's Kill for the $5. Used to watch a lot of the anti-wokesters until it became apparent that all these channels are the Nick Jr. of conservative thoughts. That's a good way to put it.
They really are. They really are. As I've said, I don't want to beat a dead horse. It was remarkable to me, the lack of variety and opinion on any kind of foreign policy issue, how much it just tracked what you would hear on CNN at this so-called dissident dialogues.
Yep.
China, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, down the line, Anthony Blinken could have written the festival and it would have gone the same way.
Indeed. Philip Blair, is that theocracy? Yeah, those marriage laws sound like theocracy to me. Dan, I love you guys. Thanks for the $4.99. One day Jews and Muslims will live in peace side by side over there, and it will happen because of good guys like you both. Well, thank you, Dan. That's very kind of you to say.
Hopefully Keaton will be able to renew his vows.
Yeah, exactly. I need to get over there to renew my vows. Llama AO, are you from Gaza? You said you were from Palestine. I don't know if it was Gaza or the West Bank. I'm pretty confident that's you. I think I remember you from way back in October. And so I think I have this right. I think you are actually from there. And so I do not mean this lightly when I say it's great to hear from you. Do we have an account of how many Gazan gays and lesbians Israel killed through AI? Imagine their terror.
Yeah. That's a great point, actually. I wish I had thought of it.
Yep. Well, we'll have another crack at this if Buck takes us up and decides to come on.
We'll see. We'll see if he has the balls, so to speak.
Yeah, no pun intended, or no non-pun intended, no slight intended, whatever you say.
Whatever you say in these.
That's more your space than me. I don't know. I don't know. I work here. All right, let's do a Boeing story. Let's lighten the mood a little bit, and then we'll finish the show out on a couple others.
All right, so our friends at Boeing just keep doing their wacky comedy routine, smashing these planes, dropping ramps, losing landing gear. So you might have heard about this one. This is the latest. Boeing cargo plane forced to land at Istanbul without front landing gear. A Boeing cargo plane has been forced to land at Istanbul airport without its front landing gear in the latest setback for the embattled plane maker. Nobody was hurt in the incident in a flight operated by the delivery company FedEx, according to Turkey's transport ministry. The Boeing 767 aircraft flying from Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport on Wednesday informed the traffic control tower at Istanbul Airport that its landing gear had failed to open, and it landed with guidance from the tower, the ministry said. Emergency services were standing by for the landing. The ministry did not give a reason for the landing gear's failure and said its teams were conducting examinations at the scene as part of an investigation. The incident comes at a time when Boeing's safety record is under intense scrutiny after a string of crises and safety issues. Boeing on Tuesday said it had informed regulators about possible failures to carry out mandatory safety inspections on its 787 Dreamliner planes. The U.S. regulator, the Federal Aviation Administration, said it was, quote, investigating whether Boeing completed the inspections and whether company employees may have falsified aircraft records. It followed separate allegations by a whistleblowing engineer that Boeing took shortcuts to reduce production bottlenecks while making the 787. The U.S. manufacturer pledged this year to turn around its safety culture after a door panel blew out of an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX plane in midair in January. Boeing had been trying to ramp up production of the 737 MAX, its best-selling model, to move beyond the crisis triggered by 2 deadly crashes in 2018 and 2019. 737 MAX planes were grounded worldwide for the best part of 2 years. FedEx was approached for comment on Wednesday's incident. Boeing declined to comment. Now, I saw Oh, yeah, I forgot our Boeing sound cue. So I saw a headline that there are 20 more whistleblowers ready to come forward. They better get some bodyguards. I hope these people have some money to hire some protection.
Well, at the very least, they should fly JetBlue.
At the very least, fly JetBlue. As I mentioned, and this is not financial advice, I opened a small position in JetBlue stock because I think more and more people are going to be looking for what airline can I book where I'm guaranteed not to be on a Boeing. But we do have dramatic footage of that landing, so let's take a look.
Yep. So here is the footage of the landing, and just like we had to do with the robot dog, we had to substitute our theme music for their copyright-protected music. So this is now our trademark.
If you go to our X, I got to use my preferred track, which is Yakety Sax. Right. But this is pretty good, too.
This really, I think this makes a similar point.
It's only funny because they didn't die.
Yeah, no one died here. No one was,
no one was
seriously hurt. No one was injured. And the reason no one was injured is because obviously that's a FedEx plane, right? And so, thank God this was a freight aircraft. So you can imagine if this were not a freight aircraft, if this had people on board.
If this were passengers, oh my God.
Captain. All right, folks, put your tray tables up. We're going to try a new form of landing called crashing into the runway. This new landing technique we've been practicing, it's called crashing.
Yes, and I just
one man's crashing is another man's landing. Remember that.
This is what we call stunt landing.
Stunt landing. Business. This is like Sully Sullenberger, only without the water. We're doing it on pavements.
We're doing it on
pavements.
Fuck Sully.
I lost a bet with him, and so I had to try and land on the runway with no wheels.
And you see some people because they're trying to push out again the anti-woke grifters. This is all DEI. That's why it only happens in America. No, it doesn't only happen in America. This was in Turkey. I believe that the plane that this sounds just horrifying. The plane that suddenly dropped 500 feet where people went to the ceiling. I believe that was going from Australia to New Zealand when that happened. There was definitely an incident of a Boeing going from Australia to New Zealand. So no, it's not only in the United States. It's not maintenance. I've had people say things happen with Airbuses too. Sure, things happen with any plane, but not like this. When I was my last flight back from LA, I took JetBlue and I looked up the service record of the Airbus plane I was going to be on, which had been in service since I think 2009. That type of plane went in service. Not a single incident, not one. So sure, man. I mean, it's flight. Shit happens. Shit happens with cars too, but much less with Airbus than with Boeing. I mean, not even, especially over the last couple of years.
Yeah. No, that is another episode in the misadventures of Boeing. The judge House Democrats voted unanimously to count illegal immigrants, including the 11 million border crossers under Biden's administration, when allocating seats in Congress and determining electoral votes. That's interesting. I'll have to look at that because we'll definitely do that on Sunday. Because even if they can't vote, if they're counting them in terms of the population, that could affect representation. Now, the census is long past for this time, but that can definitely influence the electoral map moving forward. So thank you for that. I'll look into that for sure. Maybe not important to mention, although from your last show, Kevin O'Leary's wife was acquitted after killing 2 people in a boat accident. Yes, I heard that in Canada as a designated driver. Yes, she rammed into another boat. Yes, we did. I did hear about that. Thank you for that. Canadian prosecutors could not prove that she's intoxicated or excessive speeding, according to the judge. Where is her resume pile? Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
exactly. She claims that the other boat had no lights on, so she couldn't see it. I don't know. Maybe we should do a Buck Angel reaction video to that.
Yeah. You got to grow a beard, though.
Got to grow a beard.
Yeah, stroking the beard is what makes it.
Yeah, you don't even have to talk. You could just do that. I mean, that's easier than this.
10 children lost their limbs in Palestine today.
We wouldn't have to live stream anymore. We'd just be like, all right, Russell, I need 10 videos of you scratching your beard. I'll do 10. You do 10. Boom. That's the work day.
It's like they say, work smart, not hard.
Yeah, work smart, not hard. Exactly. Okay. What do we got here? Baku 67 last Saturday went to Upper East Side 2nd Avenue Street Fair. Price is out of control. Sausage and peppers $15. Giant turkey leg $20.
I mean, they always charge too much for that shit, but I guess they went up even more. Yeah,
that's like, I mean, $20 for a turkey leg. That's like more than like Disney World now. Like,
I remember a few years ago, I was going to get sausage and peppers. The guy told me like 10. I was like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not paying that.
You're not paying 10. Yeah, no, 15. Wow, that's insane. That's insane. Well, when we went to canvas for Jose, I went into the courthouse deli because I had to take a piss. And so I bought a coffee because it's customers only, whatever, and it's way at the back of the place. They used to have a really good pastrami sandwich there for dirt cheap. It was, like $8.50, $9. Now, granted, this was 25 years ago when I would go to Yankee games as a kid, and my mom and dad would take me there because we didn't want to buy the expensive food inside. So it was like $8.50. Now it's $18.50. Now, like I said, that's 25. Now, but Katz used to be the most expensive at $17 when I lived in the city. Now a Katz's is 27. So yeah, no, it's like food is just like out of control, like unbelievably out of control. Newsom Kushner 24 says Sparky. Thank you, Sparky. Did 1940s Polish Jews support gay marriage? Yeah, exactly. Would you ask that question? No, it's just unbelievable. Buck's version of a liberal society, an all-inclusive resort for Zionists next door, an open-air prison. Yes.
Well, that's the Israeli version of a liberal
literally,
society.
Yes, literally. Good job, guys. Great outlet for info, the truth. Thank you, MS. Appreciate that. Backward people, for what it's worth, aren't there more PhDs per capita in Palestine than anywhere else? I'd be interested to look that up.
I've never seen that. That's interesting if it's true.
Cowbell for Martin R. Rock on. I hope Buck comes on the show again to debate. Thank you, Martin R. That's very kind of you. Appreciate that very much. Very generous of you. Thank you very much. Folks, please hit that subscribe button if you're here.
It's going to go one or two ways. He's going to agree to debate us, or he's going to totally block us on all platforms.
Yes. Please hit that like button, and please hit that subscribe button. While you're here, we have a little over 2,400 between YouTube and Twitter, and we have about 2,200.
You can even bring Destiny with
over on Rumble. Yeah, I can even bring Destiny, exactly. And folks, if you want to support what we do here, the best way is to become a member. You can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents and sign up for as little as $5 a month to get your name up in lights here on the show notes. You get call-in access to our weekly post-show Q&As, and you get 2 bonus streams per month. Plus, you'll get live stream access to our live show in New York City. Those performances are both sold out, the 2 and the 7 o'clock. So we don't have to plug those anymore. We can instead thank you all for buying tickets, and we look forward to seeing you in New York. Patreon, Substack, or Locals. Perks are the same across all 3 platforms. If you're watching on Rumble right now, like I said, over 2,000 of you there. Solidarity with the Rumble crowd. Hit that join button right underneath the video screen. That takes you to our Locals. You'll be signed up in less than a minute, and you'll be a supporter of this program. You get all those perks, plus the good karma of supporting independent media and helping to censor-proof our operation. ED, otherwise known as, I suppose, Ed. Funny how Ben Shapiro said Israel
prefers Ed.
Probably prefers Ed. I wouldn't want to be called
imagine.
ED. Yeah. There's, a lot of stigma associated to that name.
Based on the track record, I don't think anyone's going to be calling you that anytime soon.
Yeah. Knock on wood. Ha ha. Another dad joke. Funny how Ben Shapiro said Israel don't need the U.S. and can defend itself, but cry on Twitter how Biden stopped the shipments of the ammunition and Saudi Hamas love Biden. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate that. Kuznetsky Bassane, thank God for fat roly-poly boys. Yes, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Landrew, let's give Landrew his sound drop. $100 from Landrew. Thank you, Landrew, so much. That's very kind of you.
I am Landrew.
Landrew is dead.
No, he's not, Captain. He has been sighted off the starboard bow.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Landrew. That's amazingly kind. The world needs to hear you. Vote no on Genocide Joe. Jill Stein 24 for peace. Yeah, all right, you've convinced me for $100. Yeah, why not, Jill Stein? There's my endorsement. I mean,
sure.
Right.
I mean, if Dave Chappelle continues his silence on Israel, I guess I will have to go with Jill Stein.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to vote for somebody, at this point, I can't imagine it would be anyone but her. I might not vote at all, though, because, do I want to invest in the Greens? Not really.
As Carlin said, it only encourages them.
It only encourages them. Does the Greens getting 5%, is that even a good thing at this point? If they're a dead end anyway, wouldn't you rather people realize that than not? So, I don't know. I mean, she's the best candidate, it seems. So that's my soft endorsement. And Landrew's $100 convinced me of that. Judy, see? No
yes,
dark
we
money
can
here.
Be bought.
Transparent. Yeah, exactly. Judy Denmark, thanks for the $10. I hope Christy Nolan doesn't hear that dog barking in the backyard. No, that was my father-in-law arriving to babysit the boys while I do the show. But my dog gets extremely excited when anyone comes to the door. So that was her. Yes, I keep her away from Christy Nolan for sure. Thank you. Okay, let's move on here. We got a couple more segments on the day. These are fairly short ones. Okay, this video went viral, and for great reason. The University of Chicago suffered their own police crackdown on their student encampment earlier this week. And a local news reporter caught up with a student who supposedly doesn't know why he's protesting, right? If you listen to Don Lemon, Scott Galloway, it's, this is a fad, this is a trend. They don't really know what they're protesting or why, right? Here's a student just giving a pitch-perfect response to every question. This is about 5 minutes, but it is really worth playing the whole thing.
Breaking news on the campus of the University of Chicago. Campus police there breaking up a protester encampment.
Police in riot gear arrived on campus early this morning. Joni has been there very early. She has the latest. Joni, what has unfolded since you arrived?
It's peaceful. Well, the campus police, as you said, moved in just before 5 a.m. And these protesters have been holding the line now for 2 hours. There's a bullhorn behind us, so it's very loud. Christopher was on the inside when it happened. Describe what happened in the quadrangle this morning.
Yeah, it was horrific. They waited like cowards until every single student was asleep in their tent, basically. And then they stormed in, maybe 40 or 50 of them with riot gear screaming. They started throwing wood planks, throwing chairs, throwing absolutely everything in any direction to destroy the camp as fast as possible, to suppress this movement as fast as possible. And in fact, one of the chairs that they threw came within maybe 3 inches of hitting my girlfriend in the head. And they had just woken us up.
So it was dark because it was before sunrise. You had a warning that they were coming, but they didn't for a while, and so everybody was
We had no warning. No, we had no warning.
Okay, so then what did you do when all that action was happening?
I tried to make sure everyone was safe. I mean, it was chaos. It was terrifying. Yeah.
So you were able to get out. I understand that students are being threatened with disciplinary action for being in there.
They gave us some ridiculous notice out here saying that like participants in the quad encampment, which no longer exists thanks to them, are facing like an interim leave of absence as well as a criminal trespass charge. I have no idea if that's just a scare tactic or if it's real, but it doesn't matter because the difference between us and people like these cops is that there are limits to when we continue following orders. And when you're talking about a genocide visited upon a colonized population of 2 million people trapped in a ghetto that's as long as a marathon and 6 miles wide, when that ghetto is being systematically starved, slaughtered, every hospital bombed, every university bombed, 70% of homes destroyed, 40,000 people murdered, 15,000 children murdered, the entire population on the brink of starvation, we say, and if our government and our academic institutions are complicit in this, there comes a point where we say we're not following orders and it doesn't matter what you do to us because there are principles and there are human lives that matter more than our careers and our futures, and that's what separates us from people like Paul Olivisatos, the coward president of this university, and these coward cops that come in terrorizing an encampment while people are sleeping.
You've been standing at this line linked arm in arm with other protesters. What has happened here?
What's happening here, you'd have to ask them. Apparently they're trying to intimidate us, trying to suppress the protest that is continuing to grow. I think that they thought they could basically terrify us into inaction, into flight. But this is what this university has never understood, has never accepted, has never reckoned with about this student movement, and not just at UChicago but around the country, is that the commitment to Gaza runs deeper than fears for our safety, fears for our careers, fears for our paychecks. It is a fundamental obligation we have as citizens of a country that is presiding over this genocide, arming this genocide, and as students at a university that is invested in those same weapons manufacturers and that is partnered with the same apartheid institutions that train that military and develop its technology.
Okay, I'll pause it right there. So that's one of my favorite parts.
I'm really worried. You're always so careful about taking us over to Rumble, but you allowed this kind of anti-Semitism on the YouTube side.
Yeah, it's a real anti-Semite there, right? Yeah, very anti-Semitic hate speech.
And now I feel bad about asking Richard Dawkins that question. Now I see what he's saying.
Yeah, it's just anti-Semitism, right? Just anti-Semitism. So he says, solidarity with Gaza, our commitment to Gaza runs deeper than fears for our personal safety and our careers. This is part of the mistake that the ruling class made. Was they rigged the economy so much in their favor that now they can't even really threaten these kids with economic punishment because it's all stick, no carrot, right? What future are you really depriving them of? You guys hoarded all the wealth for yourself. You made it impossible for people to climb the ladder. Even with a 4-year degree, they take on all this debt. A lot of them are never able to dig out from underneath that anyway. And so what do you have to threaten people with? And what this guy is saying here is just the purest form of solidarity, which is that whatever you threaten us with, is not going to deter us from being here. And I love where he says, I asked the cops, what is it going to take for you to stop following orders? What is it going to take for you to disobey? Right? And that's the difference between these kids and these cops. All right, we're going to play the rest. Do you have anything to add before that?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
There was some pushing and shoving. I don't know who was pushing or shoving, but I know that there was tension here at the line. You tried to have a conversation with some of these police officers.
Yeah, I've been talking to them this whole time. I've been asking them what it would take for them to stop following orders. I would ask them, how many kids have to die? So if you say 15,000 kids are killed, they're still willing to violently suppress a national movement raising the alarm that this needs to stop, that the U.S. complicity needs to stop. So what if it was 50,000 kids, 200,000 kids, 1 million kids? What if the whole Gaza ghetto?
Do you know if there are next steps here?
For them? For me, the next step is a simple one, whatever form it takes, which is to continue fighting with every breath we have, with everything we have, for the people of Gaza, because the blood of those kids is on our hands. It's on all of our hands, whether we like it or not. If we're U.S. citizens, if we're UChicago students, we are implicated in this horror that is being visited with total impunity because of U.S. Security Council vetoes by the state of Israel.
You're a student?
I'm a student, yes, I'm a PhD student, yeah.
And if you face discipline, what then?
Again, I don't care. It doesn't matter. there are things that matter more than my academic future. And certainly every one of those children that is being murdered, starved, maimed, whose parents are having to choose, do I let this kid starve first or that one? This is such an ugly reality of such great magnitude that to even think, to really entertain questions about what might happen if Paul puts me on a leave of absence is ridiculous. And it's insulting to the memory of every child that has been murdered in the course of this genocide with the full complicity of the United States, of Joe Biden, and of people like Paul Alivisatos and his cops that he sticks on us in the middle of the night. They're hypocrites, they're cowards, and the blood of Gaza's kids is on their hands too. The difference between them and us is that we know that and we reckon with it because we have a duty to them while they hide from the truth and they won't even admit that a single university has been bombed.
There you go. The difference between us and them is that we know that, right? I like how he doesn't try to absolve himself. It's a very mature way of looking at this. There's blood on all of our hands, and there is. Right. There's blood on all of our hands. We are all guilty to some extent for this. The difference is between people who are trying to make this right as best they can and those who aren't. And that's really the moral difference. In terms of culpability, yeah, I said this the first broadcast after October 7th. I said there's not going to be a Gaza much longer, and it's because the world has failed them. The world has failed them. Everybody has failed them. It's not a question of we are some caped heroes riding in to save the day. No, we have failed. Everybody has failed. The difference is between people who recognize that and feel some sense of responsibility to do whatever they can to make up for that, and those who don't. Those who go out there, this news reporter, well, what about academic discipline? What if they suspend you? And he says, so yeah, what if they do? What if they do? That does not matter in the grand scheme of things. And you see the difference between a generation, the boomers, and to some extent the Gen Xers, although to a lesser extent, who were bought off because the upper 1% of their society let them get a big enough piece of the action to the point where they felt the need to, straighten up, put on a collared shirt, throw out the tie-dye, and get with the program. And now you have a generation who can't be bought because there's nothing to buy them with, because the society has just been rigged against them. And so now you have kids feeling like we don't really have much to lose, and to the extent we do have something to lose, it's unimportant. When you compare that, quote unquote suffering, which is a very trivial way of putting it, next to the just unimaginable suffering that he's talking about in that video. So bravo. I mean, that was amazing. I mean, that kid was sharp as hell and really spoke with a moral certainty, and in such an uncompromising way, that that went viral for good reason.
Well, it's interesting because of the look that he has and the things he's saying. It really is like history repeating itself. It really seems like a clip from the Vietnam era. For Gen Xers, a big part of why I think Gen X was known for its sarcastic deconstructions of culture is because they could afford that pose. There just wasn't a lot going on. You went into your adolescence and adulthood in this very peaceful era between the end of the Cold War and 9/11. So everything was about ennui and angst. Right? What else did you have? And commentary. It was very Talking Heads. I always think of Talking Heads as representing that era. The pose was very, isn't this all kind of weird, guys? It's all kind of weird because there was nothing else to really talk about. Like, you're young, you want to be rebellious, right? But there wasn't a lot to complain about if you were young and white in the 90s. So what else were you going to do other than be like, Kurt died, man? There was just nothing else. I always talk about how you had these morons crying on camera when JFK Jr. died because they were so desperate to have a significant historical event, especially growing up in the shadow of the boomers and their self-aggrandizement and self-promotion of the key moments of their generational experience. Gen X so much wanted to have that, but they couldn't because their moment in history was so much less significant. But now you're seeing, it took a little while. I mean, the millennials are just basically like junior Xers, more or less. And now you have a fully articulated next generation coming of age in very serious times and very dire circumstances. And, looking to that past is instructive. A lot of those kids wound up really taking it seriously. They ended up going out of underground. A lot of them really left the system. They did mostly get welcomed back in. Jimmy Carter pardoning all the draft dodgers was a major kind of turning point in putting all that in the past. Now, when you look at the fact that so many of the kids are coming from these elite backgrounds, look, they got elite parents. They take care of their own. In the end, are they going to allow their kids' careers to be ruined if they go ahead and turn around and come back in to society? I don't think so. The question is, as you point out rightly, what is there going to be to entice them in?
Right. Exactly.
Like, what careers are they going to have? What businesses are they going to start? What's going to happen if the dollar collapses? Like that, you think they're radicalized now? I mean, at that point, you're looking at revolution.
There is this there's this real atmosphere of finality to these times. I've been talking about this for a while, going back a year or so. And, despair can be crushing, but despair can be liberating also, because you feel less constrained by the material incentives of the moment, right? It's easier to just disregard those kinds of things. Whereas to these older people, they can't imagine that. Well, what's going to happen when you get thrown out of school and you can't get a job? What's going to happen if I graduate school? What is the world going to look like in 10 years that I can say with any degree of certainty that it's going to be something even worth participating in on the level you're talking about, right? I'm not a nihilist. I have 2 kids. I have one on the way. These people in Gaza have children under impossible circumstances. So I'm not saying
that's not because you're not a nihilist. You're just irresponsible.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not saying give up on the human race. I'm saying that you cannot assume that the old incentive structure is going to hold much longer. And that's why you can't threaten these kids with disciplinary action. They don't want to fucking hear it. They don't want to hear it, and good on them. Please hit that subscribe button before you leave, though, no matter what. Please hit that follow button over on Rumble, no matter what. Hit that like button, too. We're a little low on likes on the Rumble stream. We got 2,000 in there, 247 likes. Let's get that number up, shall we? Can we hit that like button, please? And thank you. Alrighty, folks, we are out of here. That's our show. Thank you for a great week of programming. We had fun with you guys this week. We will see you again beginning of next week. That is Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern on all of our platforms, YouTube and Rumble, and our Patreon Q&A will be following the Sunday evening show. Thanks all for being here. Appreciate you all very much. Be safe. Be well until we meet again.
Courage.
Please clap.